here is my 2025 Dreamcast collection of 40 games. Starting off, we have House of the Dead 2 for the Dreamcast. This is an arcade shooter that came out, and I used to play this game a lot in the arcades. I do have House of the Dead 1 on the Sega Saturn. These are really fun games, especially if you have the light gun. I don't know how well they hold up to this day, but they're still fun games and they're pretty cheap. This is about a $12 game that I picked up from GameStop a couple years ago. Next up, this is a recent pickup, The Ring Terror's Realm. So this is like a survival horror style game, to be quite honest with you. A very interesting game. I've only played a few seconds of it. I just tested it to make sure that it was working, but I had never heard of this game before, and I've had a Dreamcast since high school, and this was the first time I heard of this one. So I'm gonna have to dive into this one a little bit more, but very interesting. This is my most recent addition to the collection, along with Alone in the Dark. This is another survival horror game that was recently picked up. Very interesting game as well. You know, especially the opening scenes. You somehow sneak into this house. You find this old lady in a bed, and she's telling you about these creatures that are gonna attack you in the darkness. So, kind of creepy, but definitely cool additions to the collection. Then you have a run and gun shooter, Expendable. Very interesting one for the Dreamcast. You don't really see a lot of these run and gun shooters like that. Another very inexpensive game here, one worth looking into. Next up, we have one of my favorites on the Dreamcast, not super expensive either. This is Dynamite Cop, which in a lot of ways feels like the spiritual successor to Die Hard Arcade. Has all of those quick time events that you would normally see like in a Die Hard Arcade game. And just it's like a 3D beat 'em up adventure game. Very cool, one worth looking into. Then next up we have Sonic Adventure. Not much to say about this one, right? It's the best 3D version of Sonic that we had gotten up to that point. And playing this for the first time for me felt like playing Mario 64 for the first time, because even though we had gotten a 3D version of Sonic on the Sega Saturn, those graphics were horrible. This is the first real 3D Sonic that I remember, just marveling at as a kid. So definitely another cool one in the collection. And then of course you have Sonic Adventure 2, which, I mean, there's multiple ways you could play this, the GameCube as well, but this is probably the most authentic way of playing Sonic on a Sega console for sure. Next up, we have Sword of the Berserk Guts Rage. You guys have heard me reference this game whenever I've talked about Sword of the Berserk and the Band of the Hawk for the PlayStation 4. This is the first installment or first version of this game that I remember playing. This is based off of an anime. Very cool game. Honestly, the graphics in this Sword of the Berserk game is some of the best graphics that I've ever seen on the Dreamcast. I mean, these graphics give even like a PlayStation 3 a run for its money, in my personal opinion. You guys can let me know, but a very well done game graphically for sure on the Dreamcast. Next up, we have one of my arcade favorites, Crazy Taxi 2. Played this game a ton in the arcade. This is a very fun and addicting game. Definitely one worth checking out if you like racing games. This isn't exactly a racing game. You have to drive to different passengers, that have a circle around them. As long as you park within the circle, you could pick them up. You're timed. And basically, you just got to collect as much fare as you can within a certain period of time. So Crazy Taxi 2 is definitely a cool game. I've never really been one for like boxing games. I'm not a Knockout Kings or a Fight Night fan. But I think the exaggerated animations in Ready to Rumble boxing made it a more compelling playthrough for me. And so I've always been a fan of the Ready to Rumble series. This is one that another very cheap GameStop pickup, like a $10 pickup again. Definitely one worth picking up in my opinion. Next up, we've got 3 sports games that are very well known. I'm sure you guys know about these 3 sports games. You've got NBA 2K1, NBA 2K, and NFL 2K. Of course, when I played NFL 2K, I, like everyone else, used to cheese with Randy Moss. You pick the Hail Mary play and you just throw the ball to Randy Moss and he's going to catch it every time. In 2K, I used to use the Miami Heat. These were the Eddie Jones and Alonzo Mourning days. I used to crush with that team. And Tim Hardaway at point. Anthony Mason, I think. Was it Anthony Mason? Yeah, it might have been Anthony Mason. I can't remember, but that Heat team at this time, I used to kill with that team. And then again in 2K1, I used to kill with the Milwaukee Bucks. What? My boy Ray Allen, the big dog, Glenn Robinson. I used to kill with Ray Allen. I mean, it was wet every time. So people used to think I used to cheat, but it was so much easier to shoot threes in 2K1. It was almost like a glitch. I think by the time you got to like 2K3, they really started to change the shooting system, and it was really kind of, that was when they started to implement like momentum and how hard you press the shooting button. In 2K3, that's when things started to change. But 2K, 2K1, and 2K2, great games, great games. Next up, we have some RPGs here. So Skies of Arcadia, a classic RPG. You can also play the GameCube version. This version is great as well. I'm a big fan. I think both have great graphics and a great storyline. And then we have a very unique RPG here. This is a Dreamcast exclusive, if I'm not mistaken. Egg, otherwise known as Elemental Gimmick Gear. Very interesting story. Very unique gameplay, and the art style. It's like this hand-drawn art style, and then once you get into the battles, it changes over into this 3D format. Very cool game. If you like unique RPGs, one worth looking into on the Dreamcast. And then you have one of my favorite RPGs next to the Evolution series, Evolution 1 and 2. You have Grandia 2. I spent all summer, the summer of COVID was when I beat this game. Put a lot of hours into this game, 30 plus. Very fun, satisfying game. Interesting story, a lot of biblical and religious undertones in this game, but a very cool one nonetheless. And then, of course, we have the classic RPG Shenmue. If you've ever heard about the Dreamcast, 9 times out of 10, you heard about Shenmue. This is a great game on the Dreamcast, one worth looking into as well. Very interesting story. And then last but not least for the RPGs, you have Time Stalkers on the Dreamcast, another unique Dreamcast RPG. The Dreamcast, in my opinion, wasn't the RPG machine. I give that crown to the PlayStation 2. They definitely did the RPGs right, but there were a few hidden RPGs on the Dreamcast worth looking into. So if you like RPGs, the Evolution series, Time Stalkers, games like that are games that I would definitely look into. Now we know that the Dreamcast had some of the best 2D fighting games, and we're going to look at some of those because that's primarily what I got the console for, was for the action and arcade games. So kicking it off, we've got Capcom versus SNK Pro. Actually, wait, this is the PlayStation version. Did I sell my Dreamcast version? Guys, I think I might have sold my Dreamcast version. So this is a PlayStation game, so we're going to get this one out of here. But we do have the Fatal Fury series. I've never really been a huge fan of the Fatal Fury series. I had Fatal Fury on the Sega Genesis, tried getting into it, just couldn't really get into the movesets. They were just difficult to execute, but I did pick this up in a trade, so I do have Fatal Fury on the Dreamcast. Also, one of my favorite fighting games of all time, Marvel vs. Capcom, the original. Spent a lot of time learning Spider-Man's air combos at the arcade. You can play this game on the Capcom Fighting Collection Volume 2, so I wouldn't spend the Dreamcast money, getting the Dreamcast version, when you could just get it cheaper on the Switch. Next, you have King of Fighters Evolution. Again, I've never really been a huge King of Fighters guy. This is a game that I got in the middle of a trade, but I will give it to the King of Fighters series. Great animations, great graphics. These games look and sound incredible. Just the movesets are very difficult for me to pull off. Next up, we have Street Fighter Alpha 3, another really great 2D fighting game. If you're a fan of the Street Fighter series, you'll really like this one. I don't know if this version is better than the PlayStation 1 version. I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like they're neck and neck. I guess Dreamcast gets the edge in terms of loading times. You don't have to wait as much for the loading, but a good game nonetheless. Someone asked me in one of my recent lives if they should pick up this version. I say if you don't have any version, why not? I can't remember which one is more expensive, the Dreamcast or the PlayStation 1 version. So I'll let you guys figure that out. Next up, we've got Project Justice on the Dreamcast. This is an amazing fighting game, and this is another one that you can play on the Capcom Fighting Collection Volume 2, so you don't have to spend the $200 for the Dreamcast version. Someone in one of my comments said the other day that Rival Schools is better. I disagree. I think they're both great. Rival Schools for sure is more nostalgic, but you can't deny the gameplay in Project Justice. It's just a smoother gameplay, hands down. So very cool game, definitely one worth looking into. Next up, we have Tech Romancer. I think this is also on the Capcom Fighting Collection Volume 2. I might be wrong. You guys can let me know. This is one worth playing, though. This is kind of like a 2D version of like Gundam. This is a 3D version of like Gundam Battle Assault with like Power Stone elements into it as well, because you get these different items that get dropped into the playing field. You got these larger than life characters that are the size of buildings just battling it out. I think this is a very cool game. I really like what Capcom did here. Definitely one worth looking into. I'm going to show both of these together because these are equally fantastic Street Fighter games, and these are like the epitome. When I see these two games, I think the golden era of arcade Street Fighter fighting games. Um, Third Strike was always intimidating to me. I felt like the guys that were good in Third Strike were just on another level of good. They were like top tier great in these games. And the music in Third Strike, just that classic mixture of like hip hop and funk kind of sounding music was just so good. And then the way the characters were drawn, the sprite work, the artwork in these Street Fighter games are just untouched. So definitely props to these two. And I think these are two more games that you can probably play by picking up one of the Capcom at Fighting or Street Fighter Anniversary collection discs with all the Street Fighter games on it. You don't have to spend the money on these two, but these are two great Street Fighter games as well. And then, of course, we have my favorite video game of all time. I was going to say my favorite 2D fighter of all time, but this is my favorite video game of all time. Of course, the beautiful Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on the Dreamcast, which is the best version of the game. Even though the PlayStation 2 version has the best controls, I will admit the PlayStation 2 controller is better. But as far as the gameplay, just playing the game, and this is probably just nostalgia speaking because this is the version that I had in high school, but this is the best version to me, so definitely one worth looking at as well. And then last but not least, when it comes to the 2D fighters, we've got the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure game. There is a PlayStation version to this game as well, which I think is more expensive than this version for some reason. I don't know why. But this game is, to me, it has the beauty of like the Street Fighter series, but the complexity of the King of Fighters games. So this one was another one that I really just need to play this more to learn the movesets. But this game is actually a really good fighting game. You just got to play it and get used to the movesets, which is something that I never did. All right, last but not least, we're going to get to my favorite category of Dreamcast games, which are the adventure games, like or the shooter arena style games. So first off, we have Cannon Spike. This is like an arena twin stick shooter without the twin sticks. Has some very interesting characters in there. Charlie, Mega Man. It's basically like a shooter, like a top-down shooting arena style game. Very cool. Very short game. Not too long, not too expansive. They probably could have done more with this game, but it is more on the rare side. You don't see this one that often, but it is a cool game, one worth checking out if you want to emulate it or something like that. I think this is also available on the Capcom Fighting Collection Volume 2, so I could be wrong. You guys can let me know in the comments. Next up, we have Virtual On. If you're a fan of like Armored Core, games like that, like those 3D mech style games, you'll like Virtual On. There was a version that came out on the Sega Saturn, but the graphics were just really bad on that. So this is a much better version of the game. One worth looking at if you like that arena mech fighting style game. I'll show these two games together. We've got Power Stone and Power Stone 2. Shout out to Easy Gamer. I saw he left a comment asking me why I didn't mention these two games, but here they are. These are also available on the Capcom Fighting Collection Volume 2. Hours and hours and hours were spent playing these games after school with my friends. These games were the games that we played before Super Smash Bros, right? So this was like our Super Smash Bros before Smash Bros came out, because especially in Power Stone 2, you could play 4-player. I think in Power Stone it was only 2-player. You could only play like 1 versus 1. In Power Stone 2, it was a 4-player game, and it was just sick, man. Like, because the difference between Power Stone 2 and Super Smash Bros is that the levels moved. So like you had to like it's like an adventure fighting game, right? Because the levels are like, especially there's a level where like an Indiana Jones level where you have to like run from like this bowling ball that's trying to take you out. You have aspects to levels where you're falling out of the sky and you have to use umbrellas to try to poke the enemy. There's so many different facets, especially the Power Stone 2, that make it just a classic. Classic games. Gotta play these games. If you don't want to spend the Dreamcast money, just go get the Capcom Fighting Collection Volume 2, and you'll thank me later. Then we have a couple of arena style games. I'll show these two together as well because they're very similar in the gameplay style, and that is Spawn in the Demon's Hand and Heavy Metal Geomatrix. So these are both arena style fighting games. So with Heavy Metal Geomatrix, it's kind of like a 1v1 arena style fighting game where there's like different weapons and elements that are in the arena, and you can kind of like hide behind pillars and things like that and run around, and you get a variety of weapons at your disposal, projectiles, you've got swords and different melee weapons that you can use, and it's pretty much a kind of 1v1 battle, which is very cool and interesting. The artwork and the character, there's not a lot of characters. That's the only thing. You don't get a ton of characters to choose from in this game, unless there's just more to unlock, and I didn't play it enough to unlock them, but it's very cool in that way. With Spawn, it's a little bit different. So with Spawn in the Demon's Hand, it's kind of like an arena style beat 'em up game where you fight these kind of like lower level characters, and then you have a boss battle at the end. Um, and kind of like a similar story, you've got like different items and things throughout the arena that you can pick up that you can use at your disposal. Of course, Spawn has all of his powers, but you can choose from different characters in this game as well, if I'm not mistaken. So they both kind of have similar gameplay style, that arena fighter style. If you're into that, you'll like this. These feel very like arcade. These are like meant for the arcade, but very fun games nonetheless. So definitely look into those. Next up, we have, we'll end it off with my shoot 'em ups because these are some of my favorite shooters of all time. First, we have Bang-I-O, which is kind of like a 2D version of like a mech shooter. But again, this also feels more like an arena style shooter because it's not like your traditional side scrolling or arcade or like cave shooter. This is one where kind of like you have these different weapons and these different attacks, and you're going around, and the vantage point seems very pulled back. Like the characters seem real small in this one. And I remember spending a summer trying to get like the gameplay of this game down, but I knew I would need to play it more to get used to it, which is kind of the way it is with most shoot 'em ups. You kind of have to play them and learn the levels and get the feel. I never did it enough with Bang-I-O, but it is a cool game. There is a DS version of this game too. So if you don't want to pay the money for the Dreamcast version, there is a DS version of this game, which I believe is a lot cheaper. And I can't remember if this was a part of the Capcom Fighting Collection. You guys can let me know, but this is a very unique and fun Dreamcast game. I would definitely look into this one if you're just looking for something unique on the Dreamcast. Next up, we have one of my top 10 shooters of all time, in my opinion, Gunbird 2. Love everything about Gunbird. It is the music, the characters, the voice acting, just the pacing. It's all very good. There is another way that you can play this game. You can get the CKO Shooting Stars collection. I can't remember if it's Alpha or Bravo. This was made available on the Switch and the PlayStation 4. So you can play this game a number of ways. It is expensive on the Dreamcast, but this is an amazing shoot 'em up. You got to try it if you love shoot 'em ups. Next up, one of the top 5 shooters for me of all time. This game doesn't get enough attention. Mars Matrix. Love the music in Mars Matrix. It gives me that like late 90s, early 2000s kind of like techno funky, kind of music to it, almost like the music that you would have heard in the original Matrix movie. The mechanics in this game are really cool too, because while you don't get bombs, you get this ability to absorb all of the enemy bullets and then unleash them back onto your enemies with like double the force. So that's like your bomb. The only thing is that has a charge meter, so you have to time when you use it. Amazing gameplay. Love this game. Mars Matrix, super underrated. You got to get it. You got to try it. And I'll show these last two together. We have Giga Wing and Giga Wing 2. Now, with the price tag that comes with these two games, I honestly would have thought that these games were better than they are, but these are not the best shoot 'em up games that I've ever played. The music is very like orchestral and very theatrical, which isn't like the type of shoot 'em up music that I'm into. I like the more heart-pounding racing shoot 'em up action. And they have more of like this 2.5D graphical art style to them, or at least Giga Wing 2 does. And I'm not like super into it. So while they're cool shooters to have and they're very like unique shooters to have on the console, They're not like necessarily my favorite. I think Mars Matrix and Gunbird 2 are better, but they're cool and they're unique. And that does it. That does it for my collection. Tried to do it all in 20 minutes. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.